Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an APRO member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is APRO's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. APRO membership is about way more than advocacy. APRO connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. APRO's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. APRO's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. APRO is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With APRO, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the APRO family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with APRO. Hey everybody, welcome to the RTO Show podcast. Today, we're going through our Legend Series. And thank God we have a couple of legends this time, not just one. We actually ended up with two. And guys, I don't know if you know who they are, but I'm glad that they're here because if you haven't heard, they've probably done some stuff in the last 40 years that has affected your RTO experience, including mine. I mean, you guys have done a lot, not only with APRO, but the businesses that you've run and the peoples and the lives that you've touched. So together with APRO, we wanted to have a conversation with these guys and kind of pick their brain and see exactly what you guys have done and how did you get here and that story, that road that led us to exactly where we are today. So right now I'm sitting with Shannon and Cynthia Baber-Strunk. Now, I just found out, like literally a couple of minutes ago, that both have achieved the Lifetime Achievement Awards. Now, when I think about a Lifetime Achievement Award, I think the dedication and the hard road that it takes to get there, because it's never easy, right? Nobody gets a Lifetime Achievement Award just because they showed up every year.
It means old people.
Well, you know, just the things that you go through and how you learn, how you succeed, how you do the best with what you had at that point in time. And when they see that achievement, they say, "Wow, you know what? These people deserve to be recognized." It just so happens that we have a husband and wife doing it, right? So tell me about yourself a little bit. So right now, president of Baber-Strunk Enterprises.
Yes.
So I'm seeing 40 plus year member at APRO, board of directors between 99 and 2007. So almost a 10-year stretch there. President, and then APRO president for 2 years. And then you were president and been a board member and a 20 plus LegCon attendee. Or was it Trib?
President of Trib.
Okay. So what we want to do is you guys start business. What made you guys decide rent to own is where I wanted to go?
Well, I actually started different than Cynthia. I was an employee hired by the company that we now own, Baber's Inc. I came in as an account manager, started my way as an account manager and built up through the ranks. When I started with the company, I was with the company maybe 2 weeks and decided I wasn't going to stick around long. That I wasn't going to be with the company long at all. I didn't understand the product. I didn't understand what rent-to-own was. I grew up in a very different life. And so it wasn't until I got educated about what rent-to-own really was that I began to understand the value. I began to understand how good that product was and how many people needed it, that it had an appeal to me. That changed. You know, I went to a customer's house and I was an account manager, started as account manager, and I went to go pick up a washer and dryer from a lady who was account manager. She wasn't paying on the account and I couldn't get her to pay on it. And she looked me in the face and she said, point blank, "I'll never own the laundromat. You're not getting it." And that just shook me because I didn't understand. I didn't view it that way. I just thought it was a product. I didn't realize that the service of the RTO was actually the product. And so it changed the way I looked at the transaction, changed the way that I looked at our customers, just the whole process changed. And I worked with that customer and she got it back up and everything, it was fine. But I was out there to pick it up and it changed everything. So once that process started and I understood the value of what rent-to-own offered, then it started interesting me. And then I started proceeding and I moved up the ranks.
How did you get into it?
Family.
Okay.
My late husband and his father opened our first rent-to-own store in Pascagoula, Mississippi. And it was early on. It happened because we had Firestone stores, 3 of them, and they were did well. And then suddenly the economy really dropped. And we were not doing nearly so well as we had. And
When you say the economy, what year was this around?
Between 1979 and 80.
But that was back when the Firestone store sold appliances.
Okay. I'm just thinking of tires.
Right. So they were selling appliances. They had a whole full range of stuff that they sold.
Oh.
So when the economy was going south, they were suffering in the...
Okay. All right. So I understand a little bit more. Okay.
And so we had three, of course, that we didn't know what to do with. And a friend suggested that we look at rent to own. And we had never have heard of it. And Mr. Baber, my father-in-law, said, we're going to give it a try. So we added appliances and televisions to our showroom of the Firestone stores. And that's how we started. And my mother-in-law asked him one day, well, how's the new business going? And he said, I don't know, but we're doing a lot of it.
I actually really like that idea. So you've had this ability to go through in different ways. You started in the business. You kind of started a little bit differently, the bumps and bruises in the road. What were some of the early challenges? Because you said that, you weren't initially in rent to own, but we kind of got there. And it sounded like it was going very well. There was a little bit of understanding, a little bit of a onboard process of going, oh, wait a minute, this works differently than I expected. What were some of the early trials and tribulations of that time period that you guys had to face that was really like, this is almost a breaking moment here where we really got to take a look at what we're doing to continue on. And so when did you start?
I started in 1987, March of 97.
So
I'm 87.
So let's start with you then, because you're 8 years earlier.
Right.
Was there something at that point in time that you said, hey, this was something that we had to get through, or something that your family experienced? If we don't make that change, like you said, you kind of added the TVs and the other things. Do you remember when that was?
That was in 1980, the beginning of 1980. And it was, it went well. We grew quickly to 17 rent-to-own stores.
Wow.
At that point, we left. We didn't leave. They were still opened, but our emphasis became the RTO stores. We were doing very well. I was not involved at all, except I designed our first logo, and what else did I do? Oh, I did policy and procedure manuals.
Wow, that's the backbone. That's the backbone of what we do.
And those were the only things I did because I was a biology teacher.
Oh, okay.
And so I wasn't really interested in all of this yet.
Everything that we're doing here.
And then my late husband was killed in an airplane accident.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And so it thrust me into a life that I did not know anything about. But
she met me, so
I had been my late husband's assistant, part-time, and it was very hard. But my late husband had told me to trust Shannon.
Okay.
That he was a good man. I
don't think he meant marry me, but anyway.
There was some foresight, but he wasn't sure what it was.
No. And so he did computers well, and so he came back from the area that he was managing to our home office on the Gulf Coast, and we have had a wonderful time together since then in the rent-to-own industry.
So 87, you're coming in, you're kind of learning how we do things, how the customers are, the interactions, how important we might be to people who just really don't understand in life. They're kind of getting through it and they're like, I need somebody to help me. I don't have credit. I need to get these things taken care of, and I need to make sure that I go someplace who will, help me out. I get service, I get delivery, I get all that included. When did you go into the management side of it where you started really kind of seeing the industry from a different point of view?
I was made a manager just 3 months later, and moved up to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Moved away from the Gulf Coast up to a store. Became a store manager, and then went through the ranks of we didn't call them district manager, called them supervisors. Moved up through the ranks in the company.
So what were some of the earlier trials and tribulations that you experienced coming into this business? Because there's a time frame, and I think we've kind of done a lot to change it. But earlier on, late 80s, early 90s, there was a moniker kind of over rent to own, like, oh, we're kind of taking advantage of a customer that really can't afford to not be taken advantage. They need these products. So of course we go in and then we supplement with these products, but they have this and they have that. Well, you're paying a little bit more. And, there's all these ideas. Well, you have the ability to return it. Well, they're trying to come after us. What were some of the earlier things that you came across? You said, I got to change this mindset of what's going on.
Those experiences in early 90s for me really is what caused me to get very active in the industry, because I knew what it was like. I mean, I had customers and I knew the value that it provided for the customers and the relationships that we built, and I knew what the customers were doing. I mean, so what my personal experience was so different from what I was reading or hearing elsewhere. And so I didn't like that. And so from my perspective, it was an easy transition to get involved because I wanted to tell a different story.
And so and this might be a different time frame, but when did you guys get involved with APRO? Because, it's not only the legal advocacy, but it's a mouthpiece for rent to own to say, we're doing the right thing, not only by you, but by us, trying to make sure that the regulation stays favorable, making sure that we can take care of you the way we say we're going to take care of you, but not in a credit transaction, because honestly, that is a whole nother ballgame. That's a bag of worms that we're not getting into. We want to make sure that we take care of our customer. When did that advocacy start?
Baber started when Baber started APRO when APRO started. So we were one of the early members of APRO.
So we've been on as soon as it was available to do.
My experience with APRO occurred in, I'll say in 89, started in 87. It was probably 89 when I went to Birmingham to a industry meeting, and Ed Wynn was leading the meeting. It was a legal session. And that's when I really started. First off, I loved Ed Wynn. He was awesome. And I really appreciated the message he was giving in. But at that time, it was a scare message. It was a worry about the industry and whether the industry was going to exist. And so I really got involved. That's what caused me to get involved in the industry, was Ed Wynn.
It's funny. This is now our third Legends podcast, aside from the Ken Butler. Everybody mentions Ed Wynn. He is a name that constantly comes up. I love talking to him. He's just no nonsense. He's so full of information. I mean, Ed Wynn's like a walking encyclopedia of rent to own legal matters. But everybody mentions Ed Wynn. As a matter of fact, Waylon was just talking about that not that long ago. It was great to kind of catch up with him on that. But what do you think that Baber's did? What do you think that you guys did that made the rent to own transaction through Baber's successful? What spin did you guys put on it? That's, this is our claim to the rent to own industry. This is why we're successful. This is why our stores have been able to prosper for all these years.
We really concentrated on smaller markets where they were underserved. In some cases, they weren't underserved by anybody providing products that we were not just rent own, but sales. We specialized in the smaller markets to take care of the customers.
And it was a needed business because it allowed people to get product that they had never been able to get before. They just could not afford it. And with the model that we were using, they could afford it.
So let me ask you guys a question from recollection. What was a product that you really weren't sure was going to kind of take off, but you took the chance, you brought it in, and realized this is a next step in where we're going?
Cell phones.
Really?
Cell phones.
Okay.
I mean, you know, it was a risk. It was a different, it had other services tied to it. So cell phones was probably, in my memory, cell phones was probably the first item that we brought into the business.
That it was so new. You know, cell phones were not something that had been around very long.
We started with some actual bag phones.
So, okay. Now we're talking. When did you start that? Around what time frame did you bring those in and realize we've got something here?
I don't.
It had to be about 90.
Late 90s?
No, it had 92.
Oh,
something.
Early 90s.
Early
Yeah,
90s.
it had to be 92, 93, 94, somewhere. We don't actually remember. We remember the product.
That's okay.
And we remember the cycles that we went through, changing from bag to reel to little to iPhone, you know, went through the whole gamut.
Now, you were saying that was something that really worked for us. It kind of took off and took us to a whole different direction that we didn't know before.
Yeah.
To try most any product that APRO and the Trib Buying Group offered us, and most were successful. There were a few that weren't, but most were.
Another product we tried, Cynthia and I she told you we started as a Firestone store. And we still had Firestone stores operating, but over time we closed them, changed and turned them into Baber stores. We had one Firestone left in the company, and Cynthia and I bought that out of the company and turned it into a rent-to-own tire and wheel company, and called Ride Right. And after we'd lost enough significant money, we closed it. But we are now R&R franchisees.
You know, I was just talking to Adam Sutton, I love him to death. Hold his family dear, you know, coming from Tampa, whether it would be Slatton, whether it be Larry, you know, and now Adam, everything that they've done has just been amazing. To watch R&R kind of grow from where it was to where it is now, and how many people have invested in that. How many R&Rs do you have now?
17.
You have 17 R&Rs.
Yeah. And listen, in 2005, I was the APRO president. The APRO president gives the Lifetime Achievement Award. That year, it was 2005 or 6, I don't remember which year, I gave Larry Sutton the Lifetime Achievement Award because of what he had done. He already built a company, and now he's working on his second company. And so, yeah, very much so.
So, a little side note, I'm going to go see Adam, right? So I'm at the R&R offices, and I want to go to see Adam. And, you know, there's a lot of things that come beforehand. I got to meet the secretary. I've got to meet the office. So I finally get into the office. I'm going to the office. And who do I see there as I walk in? And it's Larry and Adam having a conversation. I was like, man, it was really cool to see.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, obviously, I was like, you know, Larry, I'm going to see you soon because I got to have a conversation with you on the Legend Series. But just the things that he's been able to accomplish and do, you know, just like yourselves, it's the things that you kind of look back and go, these are the people that have helped make the industry what it is today. Some of the molds that were broken, some of the ideas that were had, or the longevity, or just saying, you know what, we're not going to give up. And you said, I mean, you had to ride right. Didn't go that way. And now you own 17 R&R locations, which I'm guessing through the model that they've had and been able to share with you is doing very well.
Oh, yeah. We love that business.
Yeah,
love it.
It's actually a great business. So what do you think was the most difficult time for you together coming through this? Was it the 2005 time? Did it hit earlier than that? Was there, or I should say 2007, excuse me, when it went, you know, when the economy turned down, or was there something different where it hit kind of rent to own and there was a thought like, man, this is getting hard?
It was well, I'm not going to say it was hard. It was the early 90s where we felt the pressure or threat of government intrusion, where the government may shut us down. And, you know, it was during that period of time we'd go to seminars and get the bejeebers scared out of us. It was the early part. Cynthia and I bought the company in 1993, bought Baber's from the rest of the family members in 1993. And that was around the time we started having trouble. So we had a lot at risk. And so it was the earlier years where the transaction was at risk that caused us the most grief. But as far as business was, we've always thought that business was good or bad. And if it was bad, it's because of leadership. It wasn't because of the model or anything like that.
And then out of that, would you say that making it through those times when you're saying there's somebody out there, there's an entity out there, and the government is a big entity looking to really kind of take away our bread and butter, what we do every single day for our community, for our people, for the people that work for us. On the other side of that, how was that experience to get through it and go, you know what, we're here, we made it through?
It was an unusual time. You felt nervous that your company may not be there because there were consumer advocates that did not understand the business at all. And at that time, I can't remember when Shannon and I we were on the board of APRO. He was president. I was on the board, but at different times. And the time that I was in as on the board, I just remember that it was so important to let the people of rent to own to know what could be facing them if we didn't get to know our legislators and protect our business. Tell our legislators what rent to own was. Tell our story. Let them understand how important it was. And so Shannon and I worked long and hard on that. And that's one thing that I worry about, is that we have become complacent and don't understand that with new Congress taking over each year, they forget what happened back then.
We got married in 1993, and we had 15 or 17 stars. I don't really remember how many. But, it was shortly thereafter that we were concerned about the transaction. And so our growth, we didn't really open any stores to speak of. But the moment that we felt comfortable, we expanded, and we ended up with 50 stores. So we felt comfortable enough to keep investing and keep opening stores, to answer your question.
So going back to what you were saying, because you were invested so much that you keep on growing and doing this, and you joined APRO at 40 years or 44 years, whatever it is, but it's been a long time. How many times have you gone to DC? I remember last time we were at DC last year, there was like this count of how many people have gone, so many.
I don't know, 20 something. I mean, we made it a pledge to ourselves that we would never miss it, that we would go. There was a short period of time in the last 5-6 years. We've been the last 2, but where we stopped, but we've been 20 plus times.
Both of us. He's been.
So you're talking about the legislative conference,
correct? Yeah.
And when I was president, we would go. Gosh, I bet we went 15 times that year to DC. But at the legislative conference, I don't really remember the number, 20 something times maybe.
So over 20 different years of visiting the halls of DC and kind of reminding them what it is that we do and how we do.
We enjoyed it. We enjoyed telling our story.
Absolutely. So when you're there, because now you're the veterans now, we're going there.
The old people.
What kind of message are you letting the legislative know? When you go to visit, you're saying, this is my industry. This is what we do. This is how we are. What kind of message are you telling them when you get in there and you finally have that chance to sit down and just have that conversation?
We usually sit down and first off, right off the bat, try to figure out where this person is we're talking to. Where are they in the scale in terms of understanding our transaction? We either explain the transaction, or we make sure that they understand, if they know the transaction, that our customers are valuable, that our customers like our product, like our transaction, and we need to keep that product to them. It's a very different. DC today is very different than what it used to be. We used to tell a story to stay in business. Now we tell a story just to explain what the transaction is to the people that we're talking to so they understand it. It's not the urgency, and the fear isn't there. It is really just an education, making sure that they understand what our transaction is and that their constituents use it.
let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Shau here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing. And let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too. It's one of those things that I've just started getting into. So this last year was my second year. And thank God that I get to go in with people such as yourself who were able to mentor me and say, hey, Pete, just kind of stand right there and just figure it out. And in the process, you do get to speak. Everybody has a story to tell because, a lot of things happen in different ways. The way I see one story, and we could all be in the same area, you might see it completely differently. So we kind of share our story and what we've been through and what we've seen. And, it's just amazing to see somebody's experience throughout the years and have that confidence to talk to people that I didn't think I would ever see, and sit in the same room with the people that I see on CNN going, this is a business that I believe in. This is a business that I care about. And there are times, whether it be Henry B. Gonzalez or whether it be we have vendors who just really don't understand what we're doing and we're they're kind of reluctant to get on board with that. And, trying to break through those barriers. Was there any one of those times where you come across vendors like, I don't understand what you're doing and I'm just going to kind of hold off on it until I know better?
I don't think so. I think that they were always
trying to sell the product. So
yeah,
it didn't matter. It didn't matter what it was.
Sell the product, but we had vendors that would go to Washington with us and
get educated.
And they would visit their legislators. And I always thought that the vendors were a great asset because they were part of the economy, and the legislators are always concerned about the economy, and so it was just a big team working to have people understand our industry, and to know that people that were against our industry just hadn't really talked to the customer that was using our product.
Early, Cynthia and I are fortunate in that early in our business career, we got involved with state and federal government. Cynthia and I started the Mississippi Rental Dealer Association. It's now called Alabama Mississippi Rental Dealer Association. And we were the ones that took the bill up to Jackson, Mississippi, to get the transaction defined on a state level. So that process was really educational to us. Working with the lobbyists, better understanding how it all worked, because that was just a small version of what was happening on the federal level. So we got lucky early in our career messing with this stuff. And so we had a very different view of these meetings and how it worked in DC as well as on the state level.
And Mississippi was one of the first states that we were able to get a rent-to-own law passed.
Okay.
And so when we got it passed, then you felt comfortable. And when we got enough states, it seemed that the national government began to not be so concerned about it.
It actually became a problem. And, people would ask us when we told them we have states in 47, we have laws in 47 states. And they were like, why are you worried about this? Why are you worried about a federal bill, a national transaction? And so in some ways we were so successful at the state levels, it caused us some grief on a federal level.
Has his thoughts on that too, right? So he's a little bit different.
Sure.
There's been a lot of people saying we should get that federal law passed so that we can be covered everywhere and all. And Ed Wynn has always said, it would be great, but number one, it's going to take a lot. And number two, you might not want the federal government looking at the business the way the state does, because each state is a little bit different. They're a little bit easier to deal with. It's just here. It's not everywhere. When you start getting into the everywhere, you have a lot.
We had our local congressmen, some of them were friends of ours, said, you need to be careful what you're asking for.
That's exactly what he said. He said those exact words. He said, you might want to be careful what you ask for, because if you get that law, you might be in a whole different arena with a lot of different players. And so, it's always those thoughts that, how did we get here? How do we do this? You said Mississippi was one of the first few that came on. How active were you guys in that, or how active were you in that Mississippi law that got passed?
We were the ones that caused. I mean, I was president at the time of the state association. We were the ones that drove the train.
You were part of a state law that was passed to help regulate rent to own, make it profitable, but make it understandable that we are held to a certain decorum for our customers, for ourselves, and what we do.
That's right.
What do you think about this law that's going on in New York right now?
To worry. You always have to worry, because if you get several states that start to change their law, make it different, sometimes it can be different in a good way, and other times it can be different in a very bad way.
There's always fear that you have unsavory pieces of a legislation that goes through in our industry, that it'll go to other states and it'll start becoming something. I mean, I'm not saying that would happen, but New York's kind of wild out there anyway. But that is the fear to it, is that if it's successful one place, it may be successful else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that you used a word earlier that really kind of caught me, and that was complacent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that we just can't afford to do right now.
Cannot.
Because I agree with you just the same. It only takes one domino, just one, and you'll see the rest change.
That's right.
And it's one of those situations, like, I definitely understand why they're concerned, because they're concerned about their constituents and want to make the right call. But doing that from an uneducated standpoint can really make a problem for the rest. And we're trying to stay out of the federal arena unless we really have to. We're regulated highly in a lot of the states that we're in. And now all of a sudden we could be back in that arena again.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, we've really got to get together and make sure that we're on top of that, so that we can keep on doing business like we have been for years and years and years. So what's coming up? What's coming up next in the industry? What would you say that's coming up next for yourselves, but for the industry as a whole, something that's on the horizon that you're looking at as in the next few years coming down the pipe, this is the direction we need to go in?
I think that we are on the right path, but if we are not conscious of every little change that a state may make, it could be a problem. And we need to be very careful. I'm so glad to have a program like this, because it is a vehicle to get the information to our newer members who've never gone through any of these hard times.
Well, it has been a little while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, sometimes times in great peace, we forget why we have the peace and the sacrifices that were made by the people ahead of us, such as yourselves, kind of going through some of the implementations of that time frame and going, we've got to go through the Henry B. Gonzalez's. We have to go to the state legislator. We have to go to the legal conferences every single year to remind them what we do and how we do it. So saying that you think that might be coming up next, to just make sure that we keep a fine-tuned fork on what's going on next.
You asked that question, and it's hard for me not to think about risks in our business that we'll have to deal with. And so I remember early on when we were talking about the rent-own transaction and what constitutes rent-own, and at what point does it become a sale versus rent-own. And there's some percentage, some number that was arbitrary. I don't remember what it was, but I look for the example, the R&R transaction. The R&R transaction, we offer a 6-month same as cash, and 50% of our customers pay off the agreement within 6 months. So
high.
our purchase option, including going all the way to the very end, is probably in the 70 percentile. And I don't know where that changes and says, well, that's really not rent to own. That's a concern of mine.
Watching and feeding off of you guys and just seeing how involved you have been, I am curious. Who was someone or a few people who were your mentors, people who kind of influenced you, helped you along, gave you that guiding light in the dark tunnel in the beginning, or maybe now, that you've kind of relied on? Really more so in the beginning, but who was somebody or a few people that kind of really helped you, be mentors to you, and guided you to where you are today?
I think both of us will answer this question differently. I don't know her answer, but for me, there's really a couple people that had a significant impact on our business, or on me, on way business operated. And one of them was Daryl Tissett, Mike Tissett's father. And another one is David Blevins. Those two people we would always saddle up with when we'd go to APRO conventions or RTO or legislative conferences, and communicate and talk and steal whatever they're willing to offer out of their head. So there were plenty others. I'm sure there are people that I'm forgetting, but those two people have passed, and they come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl Tissett and
David Blevins.
Right.
Big names. Big names in the RTO world. How about yourself?
The same. I was involved with those two. Gary Ferriman, he started off.
He is a favorite.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, he pops up. I told what's funny, and I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize. I was talking to Gary the other day, and I said, Gary, I don't think you realize how many people bring your name up in these conversations, that you're just somebody that they lean on. And he seemed so shocked. Not uncommon. It's actually almost the uncommon part would be not to mention his name. Mm-hmm. He comes up in so many different levels. And, I was really glad to see him take an award. I'm really glad to know that he's really been that influential. But, please carry on. It's just funny you mentioned Gary, because he has done so many things for this industry, including helping some of our leadership get to where they are, at least get through certain times where you're like, I need some advice. I need something, Gary. Help me out,
That's right.
And he just does a great job.
He's a wonderful man, and he's a quiet man. So I think that may be one reason he doesn't come out, I'm going to get it done. He just has gotten it done quietly.
Listening is a superpower.
Yeah.
He does it very well.
Yeah, he does.
I wish I did it better than he does. I am not doing it as well as he is. And great.
And the ones that Shannon mentioned, that they were just always there and working hard. They were
always free advice. I mean, they're willing to talk to you about anything.
So going back to early days, we have some of the things we run into and some of the things that we come across, people that have helped us out. But I remember in the late 80s, our point of sale software wasn't all that great, kind of needed a little bit of a revamp. Was there something that you guys got or started using that helped you? I don't want to say the 21st century now, but the 20th century, that really kind of got the ball rolling. I know high touch was a big thing back then, at a certain point in time. What did you guys use, and how well did it translate you from, let's say, the early 80s going into the 90s and maybe the 2000s?
When I started, we didn't have computers.
Green bar? Did you have Green bar?
Was it Green Bar, the strip you're talking about? The cards, posting cards? Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, the Green Bar that we had would come out on a dot matrix printer.
Oh, no. We didn't have a computer.
We had paper.
We didn't have a computer.
We had sheets.
Posting cards. So you used the little carbon strip. You laid the customer, you go through the card box, find the customer, lay the customer's card down, put the receipt over the top of it, had carbon on the back, and you'd write down their receipt, and it would post. It's called the posting card. As a matter of fact, if you talk to older, not old, but if you talk to older rent-to-own people who've been in the industry a long time, they use the term card close. Are you familiar with that?
I still use card close. I use. Oh, my guys look at me all the time.
Do you know why? You know where that came from?
They were cards.
From actually having cards.
The cards. You would take the cards, and the ones that were late, you'd put over here, and here was the ones that you divide them. That's exactly right. Card close. So That when I started, that's what we had. We didn't have computers.
But that was shortly after we did get computers.
No,
Yeah,
we didn't get
not
computers.
Too long.
Yeah, you're talking about computers came shortly after I got here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started getting into computers in 89. In 89, we started putting computers in. R-Trax was the software we used. And so it changed. Of course, it changed the way we did the business. And we used that software. It was an old software. We used that software for years. And when we moved to Versorent, of course, that process was very painful. But when we moved to Versorent, that change changed the way we operated. It became so much easier for a manager to be a manager, and less work for them. And the home office data that we collected from it was invaluable. So that was the changing of that software to something that was more centralized was a huge change for us. Before that, we didn't have consolidated info worth a flip.
Do you think that transition, the amount of knowledge, the amount of availability to kind of overlook your business, was that a transitional point where you were able to grow because of that?
Yeah, we went through, but for us, it was a very painful process to change software. We didn't do it well. But once we got past it 3 years later or so, then the answer to your question is yes. We changed the way we operated. It caused us it gave us the ability to change lots of processes and policies on the way we operated, and we could see the results of it.
And it makes it so much easier to be able to go in and kind of forecast the next few months when you have the data coming from behind.
That's right.
So,
yeah, you didn't have to wait until you talked to somebody. You came in the next morning and it was there.
It was there. It was there. You can pull it off the printer and kind of look at it or get it in your emails. So as we go through things like this, where we sit down and we talk to people just as yourselves who have been in this industry for years, almost generationally at some point, do you have anybody that's filling in those blanks? Do you have children that are going to be a part of this industry?
All 3 children work for the company.
Absolutely. All right. So then you've got 3 that are, do they plan on taking over at some point in time?
They do.
They plan on staying. When we're dead and gone, they plan on staying working for the company.
That's right. They are. In fact, he was ill not too long ago, and we both had to be out of the office for a long time, and we were worried about how they were going to do, and they did beautifully.
They showed up.
They were there, and they would meet every Friday, have breakfast, and discuss how they were going to get through that.
When we hired them, they knew it was a real job. And that they had to show up every day, and they had to perform, or they wouldn't have a job.
There you go.
They didn't have a cush job.
So what would you say? And I know they're family, so it's kind of like a little bit of a different thing here, but what would you say to the next management, whether it be family or not, that's coming around a corner and taking up some of the positions that we have? We have a lot of 40-year legends that are kind of get to that point where it's, I need to pass this torch. I might not be out of it altogether, but it's that time where I can pass the torch to somebody else. You know, Gary Fairman, obviously one that we're talking about, Mike Tissett from Darrell, you know, one of the things that we talk about, you know, when you look at these situations, what is something that you would say from yourselves and go, Shannon and Cynthia think that if you know this, or if you follow this, or if you do this, this is the best advice that I think we can give you to give you as much success for the next 20 or 30 or 40 years that you do it.
Forecast positively and believe in your people. Believe your people can do what you're forecasting. I mean, when I look at the variances in the businesses and the models, when somebody is conservative and fearful, that business doesn't grow anywhere close to when somebody puts their 2 cents out there and says, we're going to do this, and then they put actions in place to achieve that. That is the single most important part of business in my book.
You have to know that the children have to make the decision as to what they want to do. I think the hardest thing is if you were to force them and just push them to take over a company that they really don't want to.
That wouldn't work.
But ours, I'll love it. Some of them started off as they would file papers, and clean bathrooms.
I was going to say, they all went through the cycle of cleaning bathrooms.
So it was, we started them out with the worst jobs so that they would appreciate what it had built into.
To make sure you don't get into this and not really love it organically.
That's right.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So going into the end, going into rounding all this up, something that APRO wants to know, I want to know, I'm curious. We can't always mold the way that people have looked at us, right? Mm-hmm. The legacy that we left. It's really done by what we did and then looked at by the people around us, right? They're going to tell us what they think of the legacy that we left. What do you think somebody's going to say about the Baber-Strunk legacy as you guys have gotten to a point where you got the children involved? At some point in time, I would imagine that they're going to take over. And what is a legacy that you want to pass on or say that you feel like you've done to pass on?
I really hope that we really concentrated on the customer first and then the employee next, because that cycle is what keeps that business thriving. And we concentrate very heavily on a great customer experience, but our employees are paramount to us. Think of us as a reverse triangle. Cynthia and I are at the bottom. Turn the triangle over, we're at the bottom. And so we put our employees above us in a heartbeat, and we actually do. So I'm hoping that's the way they viewed it and that they didn't view it any other way.
They should always remember that the customer is what makes your company continue.
Well, they're the one employee that can fire us all.
That's right.
That's some sense of saying that's been coming up lately, and it God knows it's true. Yes. I really appreciate you guys being here. Guys, I appreciate you watching. So we got Cynthia Baber-Strunk, we got Shannon Strunk, legends in the business, over 40 years, and just about everything they can do from starting the business to actually being advocates in APRO and kind of helping us get to where we are, whether it be legally or financially with 17 R&Rs. And how many the other business do you have? How many stores do you have all together?
Well, we sold the Baber stores.
Oh, so you sold those?
Sold them in 2019.
But they're still a part of APRO.
So it's just the R&R stores now?
Just R&Rs. We have some other businesses, but we've sold those. We're concentrating 100% of our effort now on R&R.
Well, I'm not going to argue because red tone is what we do.
That's right.
We really appreciate them being here. We appreciate you guys watching. I'm so glad that you guys were here to be able to share this with me. Listen, if you guys have any questions, please hit up the show at pete@the RTOshowpodcast.com. Ask me anything you like, including anything for them. And if it's good, I will make sure that they get an answer for you. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, and now YouTube, where you can see this. So make sure you subscribe. Hit us up on the podcast and the DMs. Guys, I'm really, really appreciate that you've been here. I am so glad that you were able to take part in the Legend Series, because you guys together are unique, as in you're married and legends together, both presidents, both done a great job for this industry. And I will tell you guys, I really, really, really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate you being a part of this. And I will tell you guys, as always, make sure you get your collections low to get your sales high. Have a great one.